Hello, I'm David Holsinger, and on behalf of Lee University and BandDirector.com, I want to welcome you to this video presentation concerned with teaching concepts of musical expression to our young musicians. Later on in this video, we're going to be using one of my pieces on a hymn song of Philip Bliss as a demonstration model. If you have that in your library, and my publisher assures me that 47,000 of you do, you might want to retrieve it between our sessions so you can use it for a reference later. We're at a great part of band history. In the last 50 years, magnificent, marvelous things have been happening in the band world. I believe that the band is America's ensemble. The orchestra is Europe's ensemble. It was birthed in Europe, it was raised in Europe, and its repertoire is mainly European. But in America, in terms of literature, we've had great changes over the last 50 years. No longer do we really have to use transcriptions as the mainstay of our repertoire. We have masterpieces, masterworks being written for band every day. It's a great moment in band history. And you and I, as conductors and musicians, we have a marvelous heritage, both professionally and personally, to pass on. The reason I wanted to start in my office today is I wanted you to see a picture. This is a picture of the first meeting of the American Bandmasters Association in March of 1930. Here's its founder, Edwin Frankel Goldman. Next to him, John Philip Sousa. Here's Frank Simon over here on the end. Over here is Henry Fillmore. He always traveled with his dog Mike. I just found out a couple days ago, reading Richard Hanson's history of the band, that Henry Fillmore's dog could actually bark in time to his marches. That is a programming option I will probably not use with my dog anytime soon. The big guy, Carl King. What a giant. But what a bunch of giants. Victor Grable, A.A. Hardy from the University of Illinois, who was probably responsible for the first teaching school for band directors in America. Over here, Walter Smith, Everett McCracken. These are all just pioneers. There's a bunch of illustrious guys, I tell you, who got together 75 years ago to speak as one voice for the American band movement. And all of them are part of our history and part of our heritage. We also each have a personal heritage. You and I, we are a piece of every band director we have ever known. I have three great mentor band directors in my life. Most recently, Robert Foster at the University of Kansas. Before him, Russ Coleman at Central Missouri State University. They are both still colleagues and very, very close friends. And when they offer advice, I still listen and usually take it. But over here, these are my first college band directors, and I wanted to point them out. This was Ken and Nancy Seward. Ken passed away nearly 20 years ago, and Nancy passed away just a year ago. If Nancy Seward's name seems familiar, it's because Winger Jones Music Company was her publisher, and for 20 years she wrote marvelous pieces for young band. When I did my chapter on composers for composing for band, I mentioned Ken Seward. I said he was probably the most passionate man about music I've ever known. Well, he still is. When I was in his band, I met Václav Nelibel. And I tell you, for the first time seeing Nelibel conduct and being under his baton, it changed how I think about music and how I realized how personal music is. These two men in combination probably changed my way of thinking about music. I no longer looked at just the black and white. I started looking at the red part. And the red part is, well, it's supposed to be the real part of music, and that's what we're going to kind of talk about in this series. The red part of music, it's passion and it's expression. You know, we have a great heritage in this country of great university bands and great university conductors who every year give us marvelous and impeccable recordings of the works that we play. We also in this country have a marvelous heritage of military bands. Since President Adams formed the Marine Band in 1798, we've had wonderful conductors and wonderful musicians in the military system. People like Colonel Sandelman and Colonel Howard. Modern conductors like Arnold Gabriel and, well, Lowell Graham and John Bourgeois. And even today in Washington, people like Gary Lamb and Finley Hamilton, Ralph Gambone, marvelous conductors. But we've also had marvelous players, and perhaps that's what we're really going to talk about in this series, is the marvelous players. And as far as these players are concerned, there are two things they each have in common. First, they get around their horns like gangbusters. We don't have to worry about if they're going to play their scales, their arpeggios, and read their rhythms and play in tune. That's not the concern. We know they're going to do that. But the nice thing about them, the wonderful second quality about those players, is that they play with musical expression. They are consummate and complete musicians. I'm concerned with today's educational competitive concert band system. It's a system that promotes the mechanical over the expressive in many ways. You know, it's easy to teach the mechanical. It's easy to teach scales. It's concrete. But what's more difficult to teach and even more difficult to define is what musical expression is all about. Several years ago, I was on a CBDNA panel in Reno, Nevada. It was a panel concerned with literature, choosing lasting literature and, well, literature that won't last, I suppose. But on that panel, Larry Sutherland, a good friend of mine who's the band director at Fresno State in California, was on the panel, and he said something in the midst of all the talk about music and etc. He said these words. He said, "We are a filter for the next generation." Now, he was talking about choosing good music and music that will last, but I took that really to heart, because we are a filter for the next generation. And with all the heritage we've been given, ABA, band directors in our life, we've been given a number of heritage, a filter for the next generation. To be perfectly honest, I'm not who I am because I played scales in the practice room. I am who I am because one day I played music so exquisite that when I took the horn away from my lips, all I had was tears welling up in my eyes. I am who I am because I watched Václav Nelibel slash the air of that baton and play his music, and I witnessed the personalness of his music in his eyes. I saw that angst and that fervor. It was musical expression. Can we teach it? Well, I believe to an extent we can give the students the tools that can be a catalyst for playing expressively. 25 to 30 weeks a year, I stand in front of a new honor band on a weekend with 12 hours of rehearsal to put on a concert. And before I start that first rehearsal, I spend a few minutes talking about 3 concepts of musical playing, of expressive playing, mainly because I want us all to be on the same page. Well, that's what we're going to do now. We're going to move to the classroom for a moment for chalk talk, or anything else, what I call it. We'll examine these 3 concepts that I think can actually shed some light on how to play expressively and how to teach our children how to play expressively. We are a filter for the next generation. Let us not filter out that which we have been given by a heritage of men and women who have passed before us. I'll meet you in the classroom. We'll pass it on.